I am April Eberhard. I am a Spokane transplant. I arrived in 2017. My husband retired from the Air Force in 2022. So Fairchild is how we got here. Um, I attend Bethel AME Church. I am a college and career counselor at Shadle Park High School. I was an English teacher prior to getting here to Spokane, so I immediately started looking for an educator job and landed as a college and career counselor. I've been doing that ever since. I also am the education committee chair for the NAACP, the editor for the Black Lens, and the services to youth chair for the Links Incorporated Spokane chapter, and just all around in the community everywhere I can serve. I learned that there is a lot of opportunity and it doesn't often feel like it, but when you get in community with people, you start to learn where the opportunities are to just be with others, to find like-minded people. I learned that the Black community in particular has an extensive, rich history, particularly around civic engagement, which I was surprised. I'm from the East Coast, so being here, you kind of look for the community that you're most accustomed to. And growing up, I grew up in a Black community. So what I have found is that there are people who were born here. There are people who migrated here, who stayed here because they were stationed here and retired here. So, there's university, there's the public schools, there are the church communities. And I learned that unlike anywhere else I've been, Spokane just has a lot of opportunity to build in a unique way. The Black community in particular is only 2% of the Spokane population, so that allows for tight knit, also learning from one another, and there are so many differences, but yet places where we can interlink and become stronger together. So I've learned from the people around me, and I think this area has taught me a lot about being in community. It was always military life prior to me living here, and this experience in Spokane has taught me how to build community away from the military lifestyle. And so for that, I feel kind of rooted differently here, but I've enjoyed it. Took me a while to find my footing, but I enjoy it because what I found was when you have opportunity, take them, and that's how you start to create relationships. I wrote for the New Pittsburgh Courier as a teenager in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, another historically Black newspaper. And so I minored in journalism because of the experiences that I had as a teenage writer. So when I got here, I saw the Black Lens and I was like, oh, they have a Black newspaper. And it kind of took me back 30 years. And I met Miss Sandy. I don't remember exactly where. I met Miss Sandy in the community. And she said I could write for it whenever I wanted. And so because I asked her about it, and I was like, this is kind of cool. I used to write when I was a teenager, and I minored in journalism, and I wrote in college. And so that's how I got acquainted with it. I saw it in the community. I talked to Miss Sandy Williams, and I wrote a few things throughout the years. And then when the Black Voices Symposium happened, this will be our fourth year this year. Because I work in the schools and I did do a lot of other things besides college and career counseling, they wanted some students to write. So I found a few students at Shadle to write, kind of helped them with their essays, and attended the first event to see my kiddos who were at Shadle, and from there was asked to keep the program going with what's the theme, and work around that. And so from there it grew into workshops, creating art. Younger students began to participate, and it's always in February. So of course I'm a teacher by nature, so we're going to learn some Black history and tie that into the theme. And then from there I've been involved with this Black Voices Symposium, now going on 4 years. First year indirectly just as a supporter through the school system, and then being asked to continue the program in the absence of the reporter who was working on it before. And I love it because that's what I love to do anyway, is teach, especially history, and I love the arts. I love expression. I know what it did for me as a youth, so I want to be able to provide that here locally.
And what have you known about the fig tree?
I always see it. I've looked at it. I've read through it, and I know I always see it at church. So I knew it was another local newspaper, and I saw a lot of familiar faces in it. And actually, the resource guide that I got, and I got it through school because, when you want to refer families to different services, you don't know. And me being a transplant, I don't know where to go. So I found that pretty cool to have, just to know what's in the community. And I knew it was another local newspaper, faith-based. So I learned about the fig tree just through being around, and then you kind of contacted me. So I was like, sure. I just got a text message from a former student's parent this afternoon, and she took a picture of the front page and was like, and she told me, that she was proud of me and she was glad to see it. I think I get more recognition. I mean, I think I already was known as being the Black Lens editor, but someone brought 2 issues in yesterday during lunch, someone in the school. So it's kind of interesting, weird a little bit, because everybody knows who I am. And so people I've not really met or who I do know say, hey, I saw you in the fig tree. So I appreciate it, actually, because my goal is to build community anywhere. And the thing I like about Spokane is it's a little big city. So it's not so expansive that you can't find connection and relationship, but it's small enough so that when you do find those connections, it travels. People know through word of mouth. And for me, that's the solidarity that can develop from being in community with people. So it was another bridge. Being in the fig tree was another bridge. I mean, I know how to write, but the newspaper business is interesting, and it's kind of fast paced, but just I love it though, knowing how to angle articles and pitch articles and look for news. I'm always looking for news. Like, I'm always looking for a way to create a story. And I look more now in the community for interesting things to write about. And there's a lot of interesting things to write about, and also giving voice to people who we don't always see. And that's the thing. I'm still learning the community. And there are people who've been here who are kind of tucked away, who kind of stay out of the limelight. But I'm meeting younger people who are here as entrepreneurs. And that, to me, is the greatest part about being the editor of the Black Lens, is the relationships that you build, because a community is strong by its relationships, especially in the times that we're in. I don't want our past to be taken for granted. And a lot of times, because it seems far away to the youth, it feels like they don't, it might feel like to them they don't have to worry too much about it. But I always believe in giving kids agency to speak and to express. And I want them to be activated and empowered, because they're going to be leaders later on. So I know and it gave me confidence when I was a teenager to be able to write for a city newspaper, and historically Black newspaper. And it made me realize that I have something to say and I have something to contribute. So I really feel passionately about getting kids to write and express, to pay attention to what's going on around them, and to be heard. That's super important for me. It is a very multicultural community. The 2% is specific to the Black community, but I know that there are, and that's the other part, and just being in the schools, even in the building where I work, it's grown since I first started, and I enjoy learning a lot about students and their cultures, and being a place for them to come and share, and then for me to be able to share, to build the community, because I lived in another country for 3 years, and while I had a military community, I couldn't imagine uprooting my whole life and being in a new city and not finding familiarity. So I do feel like it's important to be an open door for new people coming into the city, and new students in particular, because I transferred schools in 10th grade and it was rough. So wanting to be someone in the building that can be a welcoming place, that's important for me, because I know what that can do. And I do feel every year I feel like I grow in community here in Spokane, just be based on the relationships that I build in the different capacities that I serve. So yes, it is a small number, and it is not your Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Chicago. It's a little different, but the good part about that is there's so few of us that we can build quickly. We can be strong together. It's easier in some ways. It can be easier in some ways, because we are such a small community, and it's not so massive that we're out of touch. So that's the thing that I do like about it being small. I mean, it's a little bit of a culture shock. I'm not even going to lie. Just knowing how, and just the cultural norms of a city, like Spokane, who is traditionally Pacific Northwest, more homogenous, at least on this side of the mountain. Seattle, a little different, but that doesn't mean we can't build together. That doesn't mean that we cannot grow. And the fewer there are of us, it seems easier that we can build capacity. Being in a military environment for 24 years, you learn how to build relationships with people that you may have never even thought of, because you're kind of away from your biological family and you have to learn a different culture of life, military culture of life, and you're raising kids. So I think that has taught me how to be versatile. But I do agree that having cultural experiences is extremely important in building understanding and building empathy and breaking down stereotypes and biases. I didn't have a black teacher until I was in 10th grade. I went to a predominantly white Protestant school from kindergarten through ninth grade, and then I went to an all black or predominantly black high school for the last 3 years. And it was the school in my neighborhood. It was the school most of my family members had graduated from. But the experience of me having a black teacher, and more than one actually, and administrators, it was like seeing the world in Technicolor. It was like I could see everything and understand what was going on, but or I liken it to when In Stereo came on TV back in the 80s, and you could hear your sound much better. That's what it was like at George Westinghouse High School for me. And so I believe in the power of representation for that reason, not just for the kids who look like me, but for those who haven't grown up around people like me, because it's an opportunity to bridge a gap, to break down some of the misunderstandings that people might have about each other. And that's the only way we can do it, because the messaging from different places in society might tell us one thing, but you don't know until you're in a relationship with the people around you. And that's how you start to learn about humanity, ultimately. I grew up in church. Like I said, I went to a Christian school, so I learned all the stuff. I learned all the Bible. I had a class, but really faith for me is about trust and knowing purpose, knowing from whom my purpose comes, because you kind of have to go through life with a sense of direction, and faith for me is how I've been able to navigate. Even when I didn't realize it, there's someone higher than me in control of what I do. And as I've gotten older, I've understood that's a relationship that I have to have with God. I have to have a relationship with God in order to find my way. And what I've learned is that He has a purpose for me, even if I don't understand it yet. And that He's preparing me even when I don't understand why I'm in this particular season. What I've watched is the unveiling of different things in my life that lead into the next thing. So I know that I didn't do that. I wouldn't have known how to do that. I'm, scrambling through motherhood and moving different places, trying to pursue my own goals, but something is working it out for me, someone. And one of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite pastors passed away recently, Paul Shepherd, and I've been listening to him for probably the last decade. He probably got me through a lot of seasons of life, but one of the things they say every broadcast is, He who began a good work in you will bring it to fruition. And that's what I believe faith is. God knows better than I do. He knows me better than I know me. And trusting His process, and being a vessel, being available, being used in different ways. I think you just have to allow yourself to be available and let Him order your steps. And I believe that, because I couldn't have done anything that I've done without supernatural guidance. I'm not that good. I'm not that good. So I definitely have to have a faith base. Yeah. So yeah, just knowing how He equips us and what He prepares us for. And sometimes the part of me that wants to control everything, I got to know how to do this. And that's the hard part, is letting go and letting things just be in God's timing. That's a hard lesson for me, because I like to know, but I've also learned that when I don't worry, it still works out. because and I think it's because he knows that I will trust him. He knows that I have that in me to be able to trust him. So, and really, we have to move out of the church in order to really have the impact. There's a purpose for church and all of that, but there's everyday people around us who don't go to church. So for me, I'll tell you, this is what Spokane is showing me, is how to serve outside of the church capacity. Because I did a lot of ministry through the years. I had kids, vacation Bible school, hospitality, choir, and starting to work in the community right away upon moving here got me connected to people. And, being able to be someone in the community who can reach others is important. Because all the things that I learned in religion, that's where you get to really show how that impacted you to be able to impact others. So I think that it's important to keep that in mind, especially when it comes to visibility, because when you erase people and don't give them a voice, that's oppressive. It's oppressive, and it's something that does not build a strong community when that happens. So that's also the role I think faith has played for me, is to make sure that the unseen are seen and the voiceless are heard, and that justice is a part of all of that.